they could essentially quadruple or even 10x the amount of metals they have without any more investment, just the initial investment.
You can't lose money by making money.
Buy your gold and silver online from SD Bullion. New customers get gold or silver at spot by visiting sdbullion.com/new.
You know what, folks? We're at 293,000 subscribers on Silver Dragons. Adrian has ordered the actual coins we're going to be giving away. Hopefully in the next 1 or 2 videos after this one, we'll actually show you what we're giving away at 300,000 subscribers. Just another little tease here, but the next time we talk about this, we will have the coins in hand and you will see what one lucky winner is going to get at 300,000 subscribers.
Well, we really appreciate every single subscriber, so thank you everyone who subscribed.
We do indeed. Absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody. 293,000 and counting.
Making Inflation Pay? What is this?
This was a book written by Jonathan Hefferlin. He was a very, very big dealer, maybe the biggest in the country at the time, and he was the mecca of gold and silver and had a daily TV show. He talked about things like the price of gold and silver and the ratios. In fact, in his book, Making Inflation Pay, Chapter 8 is called Profiting from the Gold-Silver Ratio. And he made a lot of money carefully watching that ratio at a very volatile time in the market, and talking late 70s, 78, 79, by trading back and forth gold and silver on the ratios.
So essentially he had his initial investment, but then he was just able to trade between the two metals.
Yeah, even though it's, over 40 years old now, this book is still very timely because it talks about making inflation pay. Inflation's a bad thing, but you can use it to your advantage by using some of the ideas he talked about. He charted everything very, very carefully over time.
Wow, look at that. Let me get in close here. Look at this. So he says, the ratio of gold to silver, however, is constantly changing. Records indicate that in ancient Egypt in 3500 BC, the ratio was only 2.5 to 1.
But even without going back, you can look at the ratios just from recent decades and in fact just this century. And you can see Adrian's laid out nicely what we're talking about here.
So this is right now 85 to 1. So we have 85 ounces of silver. And if we just look at spot price, they are worth the same as 1 single ounce of gold. That's pretty wild.
Right? I mean, when you lay it out like this, it really puts it in perspective.
Yeah, 85 to 1.
And Adrian's actually laid out 85 single ounces of silver, in this case, to 1 ounce of gold.
That is a stunning
and that
visual.
speaks to the portability, by the way, of gold. I mean, this equals all of that.
Yeah, I think if you were trying to grab it and you're on the run,
yeah,
you're going to want the 1 ounce of gold.
If you're going to bug out, you want gold. But if you're trading the ratios, Adrian set up this nice example of the last 3 increments that are interesting at this point.
Yeah, so these are kind of the lows that we've seen over the last 50 years. Mm-hmm. So in 2011, it went down to 32 to 1. So, I mean, this is considerably less silver than the 85 right now. So probably at this point in time, you'd want to start trading your silver for gold. Is that kind of the idea when it's low?
Well, think about it. If you bought at 85 to 1 and then it went to 32 to 1, you're looking at almost 3 ounces of gold instead of the 1 ounce. So in other words, if you had the 85 ounces and the ratio went to 32 to 1, you would now, instead of have 1 ounce here, you'd have nearly 3 ounces in exchange for that same amount of silver.
That's crazy. So I think people right now, if they're considering the ratio, they should kind of see it as an advantage to be buying silver.
Well, yeah, because this kind of shows visually the bargain that silver still is, especially if you go back to 2011 or if you go back to 1979 and you see what it took to buy an ounce of gold versus the silver.
Yeah, just 15 to 1. I mean, can you imagine if it went that low? A lot of us have been stacking silver. We have amassed these hoards of silver coins and bars, and if it went to 15 to 1, I mean, you could get so much gold for all of your silver.
That's over 5 ounces. So the ratios are important and they're not to be ignored. You don't want to pull the trigger too soon, but at this point in time, buying silver appears to be a bargain based on, recent and semi-recent history.
Well, I mean, just look at 2011. I mean, nearly a kilo of silver, you could get an ounce of gold.
A kilo of silver you could trade for an ounce of gold.
Yep. Hey, I'll do that all day long.
1 kilo of silver. I would definitely love to make this trade in the future, but one thing we just don't know is what's going to happen to the ratio. I mean, when the ratio went super low, like in 2011 and 1979, that basically happened because the price of silver skyrocketed.
Yes.
So we're essentially waiting for that to happen again to see another low ratio.
But see, we're not talking pie in the sky of things that have never happened. There's a lot of people that do videos and kind of pump up the idea of silver and talk about numbers like 300 an ounce where it's never been before. I'm not saying it couldn't go there, but we're talking about history here. We're talking about numbers that actually have happened. Not pie in the sky, not what if. This actually happened. And if you go back just for giggles to ancient times, this was more than an ounce of gold.
Yeah, I know.
Again, it's kind of a fun example. It's been a long time since that happened, but not a very long time since these things happened.
So one thing that I think people don't really realize is that the average gold-silver ratio over the last 40, 50 years has actually been in the 60s, maybe the low 60s, high 50s. But right now, with it being 85 to 1, I mean, just looking at the average gold-silver ratio, this to me is screaming that silver is undervalued.
Just in the 9 years that this shop's been open, the ratio's been as high as over 120 to 1.
Yeah.
So it is trending back towards some of these more enviable ratios.
So if someone was to come into your shop today and they wanted to spend, roughly $3,000 on precious metals, based on the ratio, would you recommend them going with gold or with the silver?
It's been silver all the way. I mean, if they're looking for my recommendation, I don't tell people what to do, but gold's near its all-time high and silver's way off its all-time high. So it doesn't make any sense to recommend gold if they're looking for the most metal for the money.
I mean, I kind of like the idea of buying the 85 ounces of silver today, holding off on the gold, and then if the ratio does drop to 32 to 1, or my goodness, even 15 to 1, then trading for gold. I mean, you might want gold at the end of the day, but you could get silver in the meantime.
Yeah, just hold it as an investment towards your gold and wait for that ratio to drop the way Jonathan did in his book here.
So is this something that people could do at your coin shop? They could buy silver today, and then if the ratio drops, they could bring the silver back and trade it for gold?
Absolutely. Not only can they have been doing it, and will continue to offer that because we're working the spread, so we're going to buy gold and or silver just as readily. It's really what's good for you, the customer. We don't have a preference.
Well, if someone wants to trade back and forth for, let's say, the next 50 years, and they buy silver today, then they wait for the ratio to come down, they trade it for gold, then they wait for it to go back up and they trade it back to silver, they could essentially quadruple or even 10x the amount of metals they have without any more investment, just the initial investment.
Yeah, and it takes effort. And you have to factor in premiums and when it makes sense for you financially to make that move. But you definitely can make money by watching those ratios and trading accordingly.
I'm trying to grow the stack without putting any more money in. I mean, I think that's one of the best ways to do it.
It is. It's very smart. It's not easy. You got to be a little bit math savvy and you got to keep an eye on those numbers.
Well, I'm going to be posting videos if the ratio goes down, and I'm going to let everyone know my strategy. And hopefully other people can tag along and do the same thing.
And listen, I don't wish you any ill, but if you make a mistake, that's a learning experience for your audience too.
And I mean, if I'm trading paper for metal, I think I'm going to be winning no matter what.
I think so too.
Is this something that you want to try, Adrian? I mean, have you thought about actually selling silver for gold one day?
Yeah, it just has to get to a certain point price-wise that it would make sense to where it would be a lot smaller of a spread like we were talking about. And something that Harry kind of talked to too is look at how much gold you can get compared to the silver if you go back to those lower ratios. I mean, just think about 15 ounces to 1 ounce of gold. That's just awesome.
Yeah, over 5 ounces of gold you could get.
Exactly. And if it comes to that point, that's probably something that I'd consider doing if I have a large holding of silver, because in reality, we kind of all like gold best, right? They both have their different places. So gold, it's insurance for your money. So is silver. But with the current price of silver right now, there's that room and that space to be able to grow that gold reserve.
Kind of take advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of make inflation pay.
Exactly. Make inflation pay.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, why not use it to your advantage? This is something I think really anyone who's buying precious metals should at least be considering in the back of their mind.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Your dollar's buying less and less. So if you can put it into something that has some room to grow, why not?
And the good thing about this too is it's not like you need to do it really fast. It's not like something you're even doing every year. I mean, look at the different points in time here. We have 1979, 2011, 2024. I mean, you're looking at 20, 30 years in between your trades sometimes. So it's not really something you need to be that aware of.
Yeah, and just the other day I was talking to a family member that I initially said, hey, you should put some money into silver. They bought it at, I think it was like $16 an ounce. And it got to a point where they doubled their money. And even now they're, almost close to double of what they initially invested in silver. And we were just looking at that and I was like, wow, look at what just a few years has done to silver.
It's done really well since
Yes.
COVID.
Adrian and I both are big proponents of goal setting, and one thing you might consider as a gold and silver investor is set your goals in advance of the event happening, meaning, say, like today, silver's 85 to 1. But you decide that at 60 to 1, I'm going for a gold trade. So you watch it. So you're not just watching it randomly, you're watching it with a goal in mind that when it hits that number, you're going to make that trade. Kind of like in the stock market where you tell your broker when IBM hits X dollars, buy or sell, whatever the case may be. But you're telling yourself, you have a plan at 60 to 1, you're going to make that trade, or whatever the number it is you choose. You can't lose money by making money.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
you know what? Here's my thought. In my head, I'm thinking 100-ounce bars, right? So it's the cheapest silver you can buy that's in a bar form. Just thinking of taking a 100-ounce bar and getting 2 ounces of gold.
Oh, man.
That's where my brain's at.
I think that's a good number to trade at.
Yeah, I mean that's where my brain takes me. So I would say that's a good number.
Or at least do one trade then and wait and see if it goes down. And then you could pull the trigger and do more trades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's really a lot of options when it comes to playing the ratio, how to use it to your advantage. I think we all have kind of a number in mind where if it goes that low, maybe I'll start trading.
If you're just truly interested in the ratios, get as much silver for the money as you can and set a goal and stick to that goal. Work your plan. If it gets to the number you want, don't struggle with it. Pull the trigger and make the trade and make your money.
Here's another way to paint a picture for you with the silver and gold ratio. So just say silver goes to a 20 to 1 ratio to gold. You could take a monster box, 500 eagles, 20 to a 2. You can trade that monster box of eagles for 25 ounces of gold at a 20 to 1 ratio.
Oh, man.
Just think of that. So that's a goal that some people set, and everybody's got different stacking goals, but just think about it. If you fill a monster box of silver eagles and that 20 to 1 ratio becomes a reality, you got yourself 25 ounces of gold.
25 ounces of gold.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of why I think you should stack stuff that's just easier to trade with, like the monster box. I mean, the only reason I bought silver maples was not really because I want the maples, but I want to trade them for gold in the future. I mean, that's literally my plan.
There it is. And so you have a plan, you have a goal in mind, and you're going to work that plan.
And hopefully in the next year or a few years, I'm back here in the shop and I'm getting some gold, Harry.
And you and Adrian have the advantage and the luxury of time because you're young men. If I were to say to you the age difference between us, 30 plus years, you know what's going to happen in 30 plus years? Everything.
Everything.
Everything's going to happen. Good and bad, high and low, everything's going to happen. So if you have a goal in mind, you certainly will be able to achieve that goal if you're patient.
I really appreciate all the time, Harry.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it was good talking with you.
Good to see you, Silver.
Always
Dragon.
good to see you, Adrian.
Thank you.